In this segment, we will discuss the epigenetics, and I will try to give a brief description of epigenetics, what its role is in the genetics, and how it controls the human diseases and human um, catastrophes. Now, as we know that so far we have been discussing the genetics and its contribution and the role played in the human or biological system. But the thing is that the genetic alone cannot explain the human variations and the diseases. For example, we see generally that human with the same DNA sequence. And remember, the DNA sequence, when we say, we mean the same chromosomes, the same genetic makeup which they have. But the humans are other animals with the same DNA sequence, which are we term as a monozygotic twins or the cloned animals. They generally and frequently they present different phenotypes, that is the different characteristics which are there, and the degrees of the sickness penetrance, that is the degree to which they are prone to certain sicknesses. For example, and these elements, actually this phenomena or these elements, they were answered by the phenomena of epigenetics. That was in 1939 when Dr. C.H. Weddington, he defined the epigenetic phenomena as a phenotypes that is relating to or arising from non-genetic influences on gene expression. You know what happens? That generally the phenotypes are generally the characteristics, they are governed by the phenotypes. And they are governed by the genetic influences. But occasionally what happens that those phenotypes which relate to or arise from non-genetic influences, that is, they are influences which are not related to the genetic or the gene of these things, that is called a epigenetics. That was the study of epigenetics. And long before, in 1939, the C.H. Weddington, he explained this phenomena. Now, the thing is that how do different adult stem cells, for example, remember the stem cells are those cells from which the whole body or whole organ is composed of. Now, the question is that how the stem cell know their fate. Remember that there is a one cell which is fertilized cell, and from that the whole body is constructed after the fertilization. Question arises that how these cells they know their fate. For example, myoblasts, they can only form muscles, that is they can be turned into muscles. Similarly, keratinocytes only form skin cells, and hematopoietic cells, they only become the blood cells. And all these have, as a matter of fact, the same DNA sequence. So the DNA sequence is the same, but their fate is entirely different. Question arises that how these cells they know that what is their fate, how they have to be turned into skin cell, how they have to be turned to the muscle cell, how they have turned into the heart, eyes, and so on. This is a very interesting phenomena. So that leads us to the modern definition of epigenetics. And epigenetics is known as the non-sequence. Remember, non-sequence dependent inheritance. That is the inheritance which is not dependent upon the sequence of the DNA. And how can identical twins, for example, they have different natural hair colors. We see normally in practice that the normal human twins, they have got the different hair colors or other different characteristics. Similarly, a single individual that can have the different eye color. If one person can have the simple different eye color, or a one animal or one person can have two eyes of the different colors. For example, in this you can see that those two twin sisters, one is having black hair and another is a blonde. Similarly, the dog has two types of the eye colors, and in the bottom, one human person has got a eye color or the eyes of the two different colors. A very interesting phenomena. How it is possible that this can happen? Similarly, if we have identical twin litter mates, they show different coat color. As we can see here, that from brown to the dark brown, they are the different shades which have been produced by the non-sequence inheritance. This is known as the non-sequence inheritance. So, how can just paternal or maternal traits be expressed in offsprings? जो वालदैन के जो उनके करैक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं, जो वालदैन की खसूसियात हैं, वो किस तरह उनमें एक्सप्रेस होती हैं, विच इज़ नोन एज द इम्प्रिंटिंग. जिस तरह हम प्रिंट नहीं करते, उसी तरह इम्प्रिंटिंग ऑफस्प्रिंग्स में होती है, माँ की तरफ से और वालिद की तरफ से, मैटरनल और पैटर्नल characteristic. Similarly, how can female express only one X chromosome per cell? फीमेल में किस तरह X क्रोमोसोम पर सेल जो है वो एक्सप्रेस होता है? These are some very interesting questions. So similarly, how can acquired traits be passed on to the offspring? Similarly, एक जो प्रोजनी है, एक जो नस्ल है, उसमें जो acquired traits आ गए हैं, जो उसकी खसूसियात हैं, वो किस तरह आगे नस्ल दर नस्ल मुंतकिल होती हैं? How they are transferred and through the non-sequence जो उसका composition है of the cell उससे. So some changes in the gene expressions are heritable. Gene expression जो है, एक तो sequence आ गया ना, एक gene express हो गया, तो उसमें क्या है? We find that some changes, उसमें जो तब्दीलियाँ जो आती हैं, they are heritable. वो नस्ल दर नस्ल ट्रांसफ़र हो सकती हैं, नस्ल दर नस्ल जा सकती हैं. And this is the subject which actually is dealt with in the epigenetics, which is relatively a very, very important subject, important जो है उसका consequence है on the study of the genetics.